In this episode of Everyday Movie Recap, we will discuss the film Lolita 1997. We are introduced to a man named Humbert. He travels across the rural areas of the United States while holding a gun in his back seat that is also covered in blood and a bobby pin in his hand. He imagines a little girl who, in his arms, will always be Lolita even when she goes by numerous names, from Lo to Lola to Dolores. He thinks of her as the light of his life, the fire of his loins, his sin, and his soul as he looks ahead with sorrowful, unblinking eyes. Humbert believes that Lolita has a very unique likeness to Annabelle. When they were teenagers, she passed away soon without their love blooming. As a result, he still longs for her and he continues to search for the child he loves, even though she is no longer with him. After accepting a teaching position at an American college, Humbert used his summer break before the fall semester to complete a textbook he was working on. As he arrives at his lodging, a widow by the name of Charlotte Hayes welcomes him. Charlotte shows him around her unkempt house before guiding him to the garden. Humbert is completely captivated by her daughter Lo as she proudly shows him lilies. As a sprinkler drenches her, Lo lies on the grass on her stomach, leafing through a book. Lo gives him a quick smile when she sees him, flashing her retainers and emphasizing how young she is at the age of 14. This perverted guy immediately asks to take the room, seemingly enchanted by the underage teen. As the days go by, Humbert sadly and covertly observes the naive, music dance-obsessed Lo, who appears utterly uninterested in him. He has a view of Lo's bedroom from his room and the bathroom from there. He watches her mother argue with her and stares at her casually. In his mind, Humbert begs for an accident or catastrophe that would kill Charlotte and everyone else in their immediate vicinity. One day, when Humbert is studying from his textbook, Lo goes into his room to disturb him. She abruptly moves to sit on his lap from behind his desk and attaches the gum she has been chewing to his notebook. Lo first throws him a rebellious look before asking if she is having pimples. Humbert assures her that she looks great. But as soon as she hears Charlotte calling for Humbert, the girl gets up and runs from his room. He quickly removes Lo's gum from his notepad so he can chew it himself before Charlotte sees him, removing any trace of her presence. After some time, Lo is forced to prepare her belongings for camp and for boarding school by Charlotte. Lo won't comply, and she takes her doll and runs out of her room. When she passes Humbert, she makes sure to hit his arm, saying that he did not side with her. As they head to the car when it's time for Lo to go, she argues with her mother continuously, but she makes sure to give their maid Louise a warm hug. Lo notices Humbert staring at her through the glass as soon as she gets in the car. To her mother's dismay, Lo dashes back to their house and then climbs down the staircase in order to hug Humbert. Lo covers him with her arms and knees before giving him a gentle kiss. After a little while, she quickly gets out of the car and runs back to it, driving off. Humbert, on the other hand, dashes into Lo's room and goes straight to her closet. However, he instantly straightens himself to greet Louise when he hears her calling out to him. He reads the letter she gives him. He learns it's from Charlotte, who professes her love for him. It says that when she comes home and she still finds him in the house, it would only imply that he wants to be her partner and Lo's father. Obviously, Humbert is more interested in getting connected with Lo. Amidst the collages affixed on Lo's wall is a magazine clipping showing a father embracing his daughter, with the initials HH enclosing a heart. This suggests that Lo is looking for a father figure. 2 weeks later, Humbert and Charlotte wed. Lo is not present for the couple's marriage ceremony. Even though Charlotte shows Humbert a lot of affection, he doesn't reciprocate her love, often using sleeping pills to evade her. Humbert returns home one day to see Charlotte crying. She found out his diary in which he called her a number of mean things, such as fat cow, old and stupid, and annoying. Charlotte, who is furious and sorrowful, refers to him as a criminal monster. She swears that Humbert won't see her daughter again. Humbert is in a dilemma as he doesn't know what to do. When she doesn't buy it, he tries to explain that the writing is from a novel he's working on and offers them a drink. But she is nowhere to be found as he receives a call informing him that his wife was murdered. A car hits Charlotte outside their house. A young girl gives Humbert the letters and says she was going to mail them when she was hit. Accepting the letters in a daze, Humbert returns to their home so he can quit acting like he's concerned about his wife's passing. He then proceeds to pick up Lo in the camp with all her belongings. She gives Humbert a warm grin and addresses him as Dad when she meets him. As they drive, Lo asks him how her mother is doing. Humbert responds, the doctors aren't sure, adding that it's something abdominal. Lo gets to the back of the car to change, and the perverse eyes of Humbert follow her. After that, Humbert hugs her in and gives her a quick kiss on the top of the head to let her know he has missed her. Lo smirks as she responds that she didn't miss him and then cuddles up to him, saying that he had been a naughty girl. She goes on to say that since he doesn't care about her, it doesn't really matter. He asks why does she thinks like that, and she replies that it's because he hasn't kissed her yet since they met. He reels her onto his lap and they kiss passionately, only stopping when a police car drives up next to them. Lo playfully climbs across Humbert's lap to answer the police's questions if they spot a blue automobile. The officer thanks them awkwardly and leaves. Afterwards, the two of them get to a hotel. While Humbert is having a conversation with the receptionist, Lo sneaks to a dog and plays mischievously with it. The owner of the dog is an elderly, rich man wearing a brand new suit. Lo was enthralled with the stranger from the moment she lay eyes on him. The mysterious man claims that although he doesn't like everyone, the dog does like her. When Lo inquires about the dog's preferences, He replies that he can detect sweetness in others and that he enjoys pleasant, kind, youthful people who are similar to her. In return, Lo smiles mischievously. Lo follows Humbert to their hotel room, where she asks him, somewhat slyly, if they'll be sleeping in the same bed. As Lo falls back in the chair, Humbert tells her that he can take the bed if she would like, to which she responds by calling him crazy. Humbert sits on the bed and explains to her that they're bound to share many things when they travel. She tells him that her mother is going to divorce him and strangle her if she finds out about them. Realizing where this is leading, Humbert fumbles to explain to Lo, who outright says that it's short for incest. The two had dinner together after checking into their accommodation. Lo says he's monitoring one of the men in the booths and nods towards him. It's the lounge dog owner, and she recognizes him as Puelty, the writer. When the two return to their hotel room later that evening, Humbert takes off Lo's socks and shoes. She wants to tell him how naughty and horrible she was at camp, but Humbert says she should wait until tomorrow. She speaks softly and her eyes are heavy. He intends to return to find her asleep after spending some time below. Lo says goodnight dad, and heads out. Humbert finds Puelty talking while rocking in his chair on the hotel porch. He asks where he got her but answers, with just dodges the question with some random things. He then questions the identity of the child, and upon hearing Humbert say that she is his daughter, scoffs and says she's not. He invites them to lunch but Humbert declines. Puelty reminds him, quite knowingly, that his child requires a lot of sleep before he leaves. When Humbert gets back to their room, he rests on the little area of the bed that Lo hasn't occupied yet. Lo wakes up earlier than him and she gives him a sloppy kiss before saying something in his ear, which makes Humbert ask again whether she actually played that with Charlie, the camper she met. He replies that he hadn't tried it when he was a child. Lo inquires as to if she will need to demonstrate everything to him. Humbert is overjoyed as she takes out her retainers and undoes his pajama bottoms. They drive out of the hotel, and after a few awkward exchanges, a thoughtful Humbert complains about how uneasy he's become, like he's someone completely mysterious and unknown. Lo expresses discomfort from an internal ache and asks if they can stop at a gas station. As a virgin girl, she asks him what he expected. They playfully chase each other as they go to the station. Upon returning, Lo asks Humbert for some coins so she can make a phone call to her mother. Humbert's smile immediately disappears, and he tells her to get back in the car. Humbert eventually informs her that her mother has passed away. That night, the two slept in separate beds. Lo cries and laments her mother's passing. After some time, she eventually crawls back to Humbert's bed and tries to comfort her. They then began making trips across the whole country. One time, Humbert and Lo make love while Lo reads a comic. But when she's eventually left alone, Lo eventually wears a sour expression. Humbert checks on her, gets a look from her, and she ignores him till she walks away. After some time, Humbert goes to Beardsley Prep School in order to register his daughter there. When he interacts with the management, they make it clear that Beardsley Prep places more emphasis on dramatics, dance, and courting than Beardsley College. A few days later, Lo informs Humbert that she would like to take part in a play, but he refuses. Lo complains that he's denying her civil rights, but Humbert brushes it off and asks where she learned such terminology. She walks over to Humbert and sits on the floor in front of him. She uses her foot and rocks his chair. Lo then begins to play with Humbert's lap, and she pleads for both her allowance and her role in the act. In return, Humbert receives more sexual pleasure. Mona, a schoolgirl, converses with Humbert as Lo practices for her part as a witch in the play. She points out to him that the man smoking by the exit is actually the playwright, Claire Quilty. Humbert claims that Lo has become less receptive to his approaches, which has caused him to buy her favors instead. Lo criticizes him during their night meeting, claiming he shouldn't have to pay more, as he tries to get his money back from her. He knows for sure that she is saving it so she can go away from him. Humbert gets nervous and distrustful. When Lo says she no longer wants to be in a sexual relationship with him, he gets extremely nervous that she might have told the principal about their connection. Humbert confronts Lo at home regarding her absence from piano practice and her potential to inform her friend about their relationship. When Humbert smacks her feet off the table, their back and forth becomes intense. Particularly when he tries to take her wrist, Lo's composure crumbles. She yells at him to leave her alone and calls him a pervert. Lo admits that she had been thinking of running away from him. Humbert smacks her as she screams that she earned her money. At first, Humbert is unable to speak, so Lo asks him to kill her if that makes him happy. She becomes increasingly agitated and keeps telling him to kill her the way he killed her mother. Humbert could only order her to stop talking, at which point Lo began violently striking him while screaming that she hated him. Humbert tries to calm her down by holding her, but all he does is make Lo crazier. She frees herself from his hold as she runs away into the streets. She grabs a bike and cycles into the rainy metropolis. Humbert intently chases after her. Humbert eventually tracks Lo in a store at night. Lo, who had been planning her escape only hours earlier, informs him that she wants to leave Beardsley at once and go on another trip. Only this time, she will choose where to go. The next day, the pretend father and daughter duo leaves Beardsley and sets out for anywhere Lo decides. She uses her lipstick to make a mark so Humbert knows where to go. But as they continue to drive, Humbert notices someone following them. He looks a lot like his uncle Gustav. So he gives Lo the license plate of the automobile to write down and informs her that a detective is after them. In response, Lo sneers and keeps eating her banana. Humbert thinks to himself that this person is very cunning. He would constantly switch cars, and on some days he would simply vanish, leaving him to question whether he was dreaming. At a gas station, he notices Lo conversing with a man who is dressed in black and has a hat on when he glances out the window. Before he can even fully confront him, the man is already gone. Fearing for his safety, Humbert enters the vehicle and queries Lo about him. She clarifies that he is only inquiring about directions. Humbert informs her that the man was the police officer who had been following them as they leave, but Lo is unmoved and indifferent because Humbert is the only one who is at fault in that situation. Eventually, the two remain at an inn once more. Humbert gets a haircut while he leaves Lo to get her bananas. He finds out on the radio in the barbershop that Claire Quilty would be in Was, Texas that evening. When Humbert rushes back to the inn, he discovers Lo seated with her lipstick ruined and her feet filthy. As he glances out the window and notices that the same automobile is following them outside, Humbert becomes increasingly paranoid. Lo, who has been observing him, gives him a sarcastic smile. All of a sudden, Humbert shoves Lo toward the bed, climbs on top of her, and begins to question who it is. With an imploring expression on his face, he roughly unbuttons Lo's shirt and proceeds to have his way with her. Humbert simply gets more desperate as Lo continues to laugh at him. Between their messy kisses, he is constantly pleading and crying. That night, a powerful storm wakes Humbert. He is still nude, confused, and disoriented. It's only when he wipes his face that Humbert regains some sense of sanity. He is terrified and practically insane. He pulls his rifle out of his luggage and holds it up while he looks off into the distance. After they go, they visit another inn during a rainy evening. Lo is sitting on the ground, pallid and shivering, and they see him as the woman leads Humbert to their room. When Humbert gets to the hospital, the doctor informs him it's nothing dangerous and that it's only a virus. The doctor curtly recommends that Humbert go because it won't help if he catches it, despite Humbert's desire to stay with her. When Herbert phones the hospital the following morning to find out how Lo is doing, the nurse informs him that she woke up without a fever and that she was released with her uncle Gustav. For several months, Herbert looks everywhere for his nymphette, as he used to refer to her. He moves from hotel to hotel and inn to inn. He's gotten good at reading the handwriting of the abductor, but ultimately the trail runs cold and he returns to Beardsley. Humbert gets a letter 3 years later from Lo saying that she is pregnant and is asking for money. A tear falls from his eyes as he reads the letter. Not having enough money to pay off their debts, she and her husband decide to go to Alaska, where her husband has been offered a job. Lo says that she had been through so much sadness and hardships. Upon arriving at the address, Humbert discovers a rundown and dirty house. He walks to the door and, at last, he finds Lo again. Her hair is pulled back in a simple ponytail and her belly is swollen from another man's child. Bright-eyed, Lo waves him in and lets him inside. As Humbert wanders around their untidy house, she notices her husband tinkering with some electrical cables through the rear door. Humbert recognizes that he's not the man he wants because he appears to be closer to her age. When Lo fetches a cigarette instead of telling him, he proceeds to walk out the door. She then informs him that Claire Quilty is the one who took her. When Humbert asks about her feelings for him, Lo starts to become restless. She smiles dreamily and says he is the first man she has ever been truly mad with. She tells Humbert, at his urging, how Quilty adored little girls. He records them on his mansion. However, he kicked her out because she refused to serve groups of guys since she preferred Quilty. Humbert realizes as he looks at her that he loves her more than anything he has ever seen or imagined on Earth, just as plainly as he knows he is going to die. Humbert eventually addresses her as Lolita as he follows her into the living room and sits low on the floor. He asks her to walk with him the 25 feet to the vintage automobile she is so familiar with. Humbert explains to Lo that he wants her to leave the place and live, die, and do everything with him. Humbert says she can have the money back even if she says no. She receives the money from him, and inside are 4,000 bills. However, Humbert tears as he watches her take the cash. Lo smiles and reaches out to thank him, but he pulls away. If he touches her he will die from pain. Humbert finally asks her if there's any possibility she'll go with him, hoping for one more chance, but she responds that she'd rather go back with Claire. As Humbert starts to leave, he asks her whether she will ever be able to forget what he has done to her. Lo simply tells her dog to bid her father farewell. As Humbert quietly makes his way back to his car, he observes Lo waving him farewell. He imagines Lo briefly as his fun, dolled-up Lolita from 3 years ago. Humbert then goes to Quilty's mansion. Quilty is unfazed by Humbert's presence, even as he pulls out a gun. Quilty keeps talking casually with Humbert, seemingly oblivious to the danger of the situation, even after Humbert identifies himself as Lo's father. He doesn't begin to take this a little more seriously until Humbert fires dangerously close to him. Quilty escapes and dashes to a room containing a piano so he can play it. After shooting him in the back, Humbert quickly reloads because he has run out of ammunition and Quilty is bleeding badly as he stumbles to the corridor. The man is shot by Humbert multiple times, and he collapses to the ground. Still, he manages to crawl to his room and climb into his bed. It is there that Humbert fires his last shot. And we are brought back to the opening of the scene. A bobby pin in his blood-stained fingers and an equally blood-stained revolver in his back seat accompany a hopeless Humbert as he travels through the countryside. Before Humbert turns to surrender, he swerves into a field with the cops pursuing him and another group of officers blocking his path. After Humbert gets out of his automobile, he stares over a village and hears kids playing in the background. Lolita not being there causes him so much sadness. The movie ends as Humbert passes away in prison from a disease. A month later, on Christmas Day, Lolita passed after giving birth. Thank you for watching. For more content like this, please like and subscribe.